Hello and welcome to your daily dose of Satoshi's news. Today's day is Sunday, the 14th of June, 2026, the year of Greenwix and BSV Terranode in the mix. Branch your threads, expand your mind with treechat.ai or your post put on chain. Right, let's see what we've got today. Gonna have to go over this post on Facebook. Another one from Fiona Rose Diamonds. We'll have a look at the figures as well, and then we've got a YouTube video that we need to remind ourselves on. It's going to be absolutely epic. Right, let's go.
Satoshi, like a cowboy in the West, riding on the blockchain that they call the very best. 1 million strong, them transactions flying free. Just wait for the Terra node, you'll surely see.
All right, so let's play this post on Facebook. This is fascinating. So it's just a short 2-minute clip. Here we go.
60,000. Over the weekend, we broke through 60,000. You've had record outflows of Bitcoin ETFs, Ethereum ETFs had, I think, 17 straight days of outflows. What do you tell Bitcoin believers right now? This was supposed to be the moment, and I feel like Bitcoin didn't show up for me. Tell me that I'm wrong.
And you're right, Taylor. And it didn't show up for you because everybody was anticipating the C.I.A. Act clearing, going through the hill and getting done as law. Bitcoin's going nowhere until people talk about institutions investing in Bitcoin. They don't touch Bitcoin because it's not yet law. They touch stable coins because we had the Genius Act clear. So we need this law to pass. And then you will see the 1 to 3% allocation of sovereign wealth. Because I talk to those guys every day. They don't touch Bitcoin. Okay. The big opportunity when this C.I.A. Act passes is the S&P 500 has not touched blockchain for 14 years. We've been talking about putting everything in contract and everything else in compliance and logistics and inventory control onto blockchain. Now, not one company yet is standardized on any of them yet. The minute this law becomes law, one of these chains, not necessarily Ethereum, is going to find a way into all of the 11 sectors of the S&P. And you want to be dancing with that girl at the prom. Okay. So I've got a whole bunch of people on my shop working, trying to find which one of these chains, and you've heard them all the names, and they said, buy my chain, buy my chain. They're all poo-poo. They're all down in the toilet, the all-time lows. One of them is going to emerge as the standard. Then you're buying the enterprise software of the future. I want to pick that winner. I hope I can.
I want to get your thoughts on Bitcoin. We were at 120,000.
There we go. So I think you heard that from Kevin O'Leary himself. They're all poo-poo. You know what that means? They're all shit coins. Like I've been saying, shit coins, shit for brains. But he says one of them is going to worm their way in to the S&P 500. One of them is gonna win this. And he said he's got his whole team on it, which shows you how clueless they are, because we already know which one that's going to be. But they know there's only one that's going to emerge. There is only one global chain, as Satoshi Nakamoto said. And he's maybe just realized this. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've got my guys. We're going. Well, I mean, if you all you've got to do is scratch the surface, mate. You know, interesting. But yeah, fascinating that they're now starting to realize only one of them's going to win. You've got to try and pick a winner, try and back this horse. But yeah, there we go. And now let's go on to this post here from Fiona Rose Diamond. Fascinating. Here we go. Have a listen.
The government has literally exempted itself from the rules that the laws that they're trying to force on us. The fucking parasites, the MPs, the lords, the civil servants that have all voted for the Online Safety Act, the fucking Data Use and Access Act, all of this dystopian legislation that's forcing us to live in this digital dystopia, they are literally exempt from it. And if this doesn't make you really, really fucking angry, I don't know what will. Now, I wasn't going to do anything because I meant to be healing and focusing on my cancer and getting my law studies done, but I am so fucking furious about this, and I've had to write it down so I can share it all with you. I'm absolutely furious. Now, it's a really good thing that I'm a fucking law student now. They'll never let me practice. I already know that now. And that's absolutely fine. I've got other fucking plans, but I want to let you all know that this screening, this checking people's messages, this screening all the messages, all the photos, the fact that they want us to be transparent to them, they become more opaque to us. That's not just a saying, it's actually true. And you need to know the laws that they use that make them exempt from what they're forcing on us, the people. One of the acts is the Investigatory Powers Act, the divine right of MPs. While the state gives intelligence agencies sweeping powers to intercept, hack, and harvest the public's data, they built a golden shield for politicians. Under the law, Section 26 of the IPA, this section explicitly creates provisions for the protection of members of relevant legislatures. Under this law, a standard law enforcement or intelligence agency cannot touch an MP's data. A warrant to intercept a politician's communications can only be issued if the Prime Minister personally approves and signs off on it in writing. Keir fucking Starmer. The reality is, while the public's data is subjected to a mass bulk warrants and algorithm-driven scanning, politicians granted themselves a personal prime ministerial veto. And then there's the Online Safety Act. New legislation they've built in protections to for them as well, bypassing the digital dragnet. The highly controversial push for client-side scanning, forcing tech companies to scan your private messages on your phone before they're encrypted, does not apply to the state. MPs, lords, civil servants, the lot of them. Under Schedule 1. The Act explicitly states that its sweeping content moderation and surveillance duties does not apply to internal business resources or services used by public bodies. The official communication tools, right, servers and channels used by secretaries of state, MPs, ministers and civil servants are statutorily exempt from the intrusive scanning regimes forced onto public platforms like WhatsApp and Signal. I think you've probably all seen the Signal statement. If you're interested in this at all, everybody needs to be. Your private life becomes completely transparent to state scrutiny, while the inner workings of the government operations remain entirely opaque. I'm so fucking angry. I'm not even shocked. The ministerial Henry VIII veto, Henry VIII powers, guys, basically means they can make and change any law. They can just change legislation at a whim. That's called Henry VIII powers for a reason. It's dictating the rules at will. The system is literally rigged. So that if the government official ever feels, one person, one Secretary of State, if they ever feel threatened by a surveillance clause, they can simply rewrite the law without a parliamentary vote. The Henry VIII powers embedded within the Online Safety Act. The Act grants the Secretary of State secondary legislative powers to alter, amend, or exempt new categories of digital services via statutory instruments. A government minister possesses the personal unchecked authority to carve out further executive exemptions for themselves and their allies behind closed doors, completely bypassing the democratic oversight fucking can't believe it, honestly, the democratic oversight of the House of Commons debate. And then there's the Wilson Doctrine, which is codifying this dual standard. What began as a constitutional convention in 1966 has been weaponized in the digital age to ensure the ruling class remains entirely unmonitored. So the Wilson Doctrine establishes that the police and security services are completely banned from tapping, tracking or snooping on members of parliament or peers. The ones that you need to be watching, the parasites and the paedophiles and the paedophile protectors. Modern surveillance statutes have actively codified this doctrine into law. It ensures that the very individuals voting to strip you of your digital privacy, just complete privacy, are constitutionally and legally protected from ever experiencing the consequences of their own votes. So at the end of the day, this is the textbook definition of legislative tyranny. And by the way, this has been in the making for hundreds of years. Anyone that thinks that this is just, we've been co-opted by globalists in the last 10, 5, 20 years. I'm sorry, guys. The system was absolutely built for this right now over, what, an 800-year period? We've got to stop thinking that we've just been co-opted at some point. It was built for this. A democratic society functions on the principle that the state is transparent to the people and the people remain private from the state. The UK has completely inverted this doctrine, and by law, the state is actively turning your smartphone into an informant that scans your text messages, photos and private thoughts before encryption can protect them. Meanwhile, the politicians, the parasites, the Secretary of State and the elite bureaucrats have legally declared their own devices to be sacred, untouchable and completely opaque. They know exactly how dangerous and invasive this technology is, which is precisely why they've passed explicit laws to ensure that they are completely exempt from it. I predict a riot. If you're not absolutely fuming that what people are telling you is the truth, that we are speeding towards, within weeks and months, speeding towards a complete digital dystopia, a panopticon, a gulag, literally, you need to wake up. People, you need to wake up. People have been warning actually about this for decades, to be fair. Myself and others campaigned against the Online Harms Bill at the time, which is now the Online Safety Act, which was a prelude to all of this. We've been telling you for the longest time, and people need to be really, really angry because they are completely exempt from the laws that they are trying to force on us, that they vote for. And that's why they love it so much as well. I am so angry that we've let it get to this point. And then there's still some people that seriously think, by the way, the 29th of July is a deadline for the Secretary of State to update Parliament, House of Commons, PM on their progress that they're making on the under 16s ban. By the end of 2026 is when they want that completely rolled out for everybody to access social media and the internet. We do not have until 2029 to vote our way out. We cannot vote our way out of tyranny, people. We just can't. So we need to do something, and we need to be really, really creative. And I'm not inciting anything, but for 6 years, I've really, really tried. We've got to change it up. We've got to do something.
She's right. Like we've got to do something, but we all know what we need to do, and she doesn't know. That's why it's a case of getting this message out. So maybe people like her, but I mean, would she have the intellectual capacity to understand it? Like, she doesn't see, she's sort of like studying the law, but all they are is rules that they're giving her, because there are no laws post 1st of January 1973 that are valid. They're all invalid due to perpetuating the continued deposition of the monarch. And those that are repugnant to the Constitution are automatically null and void. Where she's getting her knickers in a twist, going, oh, they can't do this. Well, yeah, they can't do it, but how do you sell them? It's null and void. It's just words on a bit of paper. It's going to take people power, and like the law is impotent without political will. Political will is useless without economic power, and economic power can't be sustained without the law. We've got we've got the knowledge on the economics, we've got the knowledge on the law. We just simply need the political will, and for people to unite. Because at the moment it's obviously, diversity is our strength in order to create division. But we all know what's going on. Right, while we're here, let's have a quick look at these figures then, because I believe something is happening here. Let me explain. So Grey coin at 64,000, B crush just above 200, fish price, who cares? Bitcoin at $12, hash rate 0.02, network nodes 0.17, transactions 75 pretty much, and block size 72.9. And remember, in Bitcoin, hash rate and network nodes are vanity, transactions and block size are sanity, because the data, which is the block size, is uploaded by the transactions. The transactions are then processed by the nodes that create blocks and supply the hash rate. So you don't need nodes if you haven't got transactions. You can't have transactions if you don't have any data. And then the hash rate is meant to be attracted to the price, which is meant to be representative of the value, but the price is currently manipulated by tether printing and all that. But the block size is the only thing you need. Look at the blocks coming through here. We've got 24 megabyte blocks, 39, 14, 23, 11, 13, 27. Absolutely smashing BTC just on those few blocks there. But look, this is what I want to draw people's attention to. This one right here, look at that. Look at that. That was around 8% the other day, but now it's 22.7% more profitable to mine on BTC than it is on Bcrash. And why is that significant? Well, let's have a look at the hash rate here on Bcrash. Look at this. So other miners with the sort of 38% of the hash rate on there. Why would you have 38% of the hash rate on there when it's 22% more profitable to mine on BTC? Miners should be leaving the chain, but it looks like miners are leaving the chain, but other miners are not. They are increasing their position in the hash rate, which makes me think something is going on. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's normally around 1 or 2% more profitable. It's been sort of 8 to 10% these last few weeks, and now it's 22%. So something is moving. I think I know what it is, but I don't really want to reveal it on this show. But just for something that's interesting, I want you to have a look at this. Just when I bring this one up, we're going to play this, so you might give you an idea as to what I think is going on. See what that looks like. Right, here we go. Let's play this.
Is very simple. We don't want a quick war. I said this beforehand. I want to burn them to fucking shit. I want to have no Bitcoin left with Roger, no Bitcoin with Jihad. I want them fucking broke. Thank you.
So
I want them to burn everything they own. Then we finish.
How long are you willing to wait this out? Because, you know, what you could call it a
2026.
2020. Dear Lord. So 2026.
I don't give a shit if no one can sell for 2026. That's my date.
Love it. That's my date. And that is the clue as to what might actually be going on.
Base 44 super agents. The next thing you can.
In terms of my own suspicions as to what is happening. So there we go. Obviously, you can tell that I'm on my laptop. It's just a little bit tricky. But yeah, there we go. Some very interesting topics there today. Right, we'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. As ever, be aware, take care, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.
The king still has one more move.